Hey, what is up, everybody, and welcome to Dharma Time here on WPSN99.com. As always, I'm your host, the Dharma Guy, with the Dupe Doctor. What's up, brother?
Hola, ¿cómo está?
Nada. I gotta say, though, right before we went on, so, as always, we're cooped up in our homes. Ish, I guess. We're still going out, but...
Well, we're in Florida, man. We're not cooped up in our... What are you talking about?
But, so I'm doing it...
We have sunshine and we have DeSantis. Everybody else has snow and they have another quack.
Well, anyway, my point was, so the dog is in here with me now. I try to keep them separated so they don't bark and everything else. But, so, my big one is this massive 70-pound pit bull baby. He tries to, like, climb in your lap all the time. Yeah. But, he's got the worst, most foul-smelling breath. Yeah, he walked up to like look up at me like, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "Oh my God, you stink." So that was happening right before we went on air.
I got one.
Yeah, man. But I gotta say, I'm excited about something really stupid and trivial. Normally we do our shows late enough, and for those of you watching live, we are currently on at 11 a.m. So it's a couple hours, earlier, but a day later.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're usually on air on Tuesdays live on Facebook.com/WPSN99. And if you're currently watching us live, then you're realizing this is a day late, but it's not at our normal 1 o'clock time. It's at 11. But what that means, though, is I get to join you in this.
Oh,
I can finally have my Celsius because it's I usually have them earlier.
Cheers. Yeah, I see that you have the watermelon as well.
That's right, man. And I should have some grape delivered to my front door any minute now. So, yeah, man, keep me engaged is what I like to call it.
Right.
Anyways, how have things been? We've had it's 4 p.m. for Ellie over in UK. Wow.
That's awesome. What's up, Ellie?
Right on. So, anyways, you got any?
We don't interrupt our dinner time, finally.
Exactly. Anything fantastic and wonderful happening in your neck of the woods before we get started?
No, well...
busy.
Well, this weekend is kind of cool because this weekend, or really Monday, I think, is when she's having Dahlia and John, my oldest daughter, and her fiance are having their engagement party.
Oh, right on.
We'll have family come this weekend.
Right on.
Be able to spend time with them, my parents and my brother, his family. And, I mean, it's cool, man. I mean, it's 1 year out. We're just about 1 year out from my daughter getting married, my oldest daughter getting married. So that's... just an incredible thing, man.
Right on. Oh, and I'm still hoping that doesn't impact our vacation date, man. Because I'm banking on you and Dana joining us in February. I'm banking on it.
A lot will have to be done.
I'm banking on that. It's going to be worth it, man. It's totally worth it. Everybody who's listening to this, send him messages. Tell them vacation Jackson Hole. It's an adults only trip, man. It's going to be a good one. We're all going to have fun. I promise you, it's worth it.
All my kids are adults. They count.
If they pay their own way, I guess. Anyways, so let's get started, man. This is number 2 of our Judgment series, right? So we're doing a 4-part series on judgment. How we judge things and being judged, and we're kind of in that climate right now where there seems to be an awful lot of judgment happening, right? People are judging what is deemed appropriate, what is deemed inappropriate, what's good, what's bad, what's funny, what's not, what's racist, what's not. There's just so much of that happening right now, and so we decided we wanted to address this from a spiritual perspective, right? Because it's something we're all dealing with in some form or fashion. We are all dealing with this somehow because it's no longer just those people who are dealing with it. We all are. It's invaded our lives now, and almost there's almost nowhere safe, right? That we can go anymore and not have to be confronted with these discussions in some form or fashion. You and I were just joking prior to coming on air. Even our favorite shows that we watch, we're having a hard time watching now because they can't just entertain us anymore. Now they have to. And I understand the concept of them trying to stay relevant, but I think they're missing the boat is. Maybe we're watching that to escape from all this, right? Maybe I'm watching that strictly to be entertained, and I don't want to be reminded of these daily conversations and stuff. And so for them to pound it down our throats while we're watching, it's just kind of frustrating. But I digress.
Yeah, everything is school.
Yeah, right. Like
Cool.
I just want to I
No,
just want to
Trinity, I told
zone
you,
out.
but you remember, like, I think it was a couple years ago, I told you even the video game world
Yeah,
is all about educating you. It all
yeah,
has these little underlying little
yeah.
social messaging, and it's like you can't even do a video game. That's why I like the sports games. It doesn't
Right,
do that.
right.
Really easy sports game.
I'm digging the one I'm digging Destiny because at least that one's just go kill stuff, right? And that's pretty
Oh, I'm
all
sure there's social
probably.
mess.
Well, in the form of emblems, they do have like Black Lives Matter and stuff like that. So,
There you go.
but that's it's an individual choice, I guess. But, anyways, so we want to talk
Anyway,
about. Go ahead.
I do want to say something before you continue, though. Since Ellie is in Europe, Ellie, I want to invite you one of these days when we do In the Middle. We the Middle. I want to talk to her about England and what's going on in England because I'm very curious as to a different perspective outside of the United States. Somebody like Ellie who engaged with the American culture yet not from here, not here. So Ellie, hopefully one of these Fridays after the Couch Live, we'd love for you to join us on We the Middle. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, so I want to do a show on reality, right? And what one of the many things that have prompted this, we can use several examples. I use the most benign example I could think of right off the bat, and that is American Idol, right? And yes, I think that show's actually it's still on, right? Like this is crazy to me.
I haven't watched it in a lot of years.
Yeah, but anyways, so watching American Idol back in the day, Simon Cowell made a big name for himself by being the voice of honesty, I guess is what some people refer to it as.
All right.
He was the token Englishman that would come on and just be blunt and straightforward to people. And there was a period of time where like every show had to have the blunt Englishman. It was weird. But anyways, so people would come on and many of them just like couldn't sing, right? Just many of them just were really bad. And it was quite evident that like nobody in their lives told them, hey, maybe singing is not for you. Like nobody told them that. They all kept encouraging them.
No, people told them.
Well, not their parents, I guess, but
they didn't believe it, and
yeah.
The closest to them didn't tell them.
Maybe, I don't know, because some of them seemed genuinely shocked when they were told they couldn't sing. So I don't know.
Well, I don't think they're listening
maybe.
to a lot of their friends or people outside of their family.
But Simon made a name for himself by being the guy that says, "Hey, you suck. Like you really shouldn't be doing this." And
American Idol made millions off making fun of them.
Yeah,
millions
absolutely.
Of showing how ridiculous
yes.
they are. I mean,
yes.
just shaming them to death. I mean, millions off of shaming.
Yes. Yeah, and we all joined in on the fun, right? I mean, I know so many people who only watched the first few episodes for that and then stopped after. Yeah. And so, and for Simon Cowell, he made there was a half and half, right? There was so many people that loved him for that. But then there was also so many people that did not like him. They thought he was a bully. He caused a lot of controversy. And that's kind of what we want to touch on today is the reality check, right? Like, I think, we started to do the Judgment series. What was part of the catalyst that brought it to my attention was when I made the joke about the kid across the street, going 0 for 30 or 1 for 30, I think it was. And I was like, hey, how do I go explain to him that this might not be his path, right? And immediately everybody jumped, well, not everybody, there's a few people who jumped all over that, saying that, it was against who I was as a person, and I should go help him, and all these wonderful, beautiful things, right? But they don't fit within reality. And the reality is that we don't want to address is not everybody was meant to play basketball. Not everybody was meant to do everything. Michael Jordan himself, the greatest of all time for many, many people, myself included, could not play basketball or baseball. He tried. He just wasn't that good at it. He was decent. He was probably better than I would be if I went out there and did it. But he still wasn't good enough to make the cut. He just wasn't. That's why he came to basketball. And what did he do? Win 3 more championships, because that's what his path was. And so I think that leads to a broader conversation, spiritually or philosophically, when it comes to just our day-to-day lives and how we interact with people. Is, we all have experiences in our life that teach us kind of what reality is, right? Our reality is I think it was a quote, I'll look it up here in a minute, but it was along the lines of reality is basically our brain's best guess as to what's going to happen based upon everything that's already happened, right? Like that's what reality is.
I needed another sip just to get that
Yeah.
Okay, say that one again.
Yeah, it's you know what? I'm gonna look it up. Give me one. I'll look it up so I get it correct. It's a good one though. It was a really good one. I really like it. Thankfully, I have it right here on my phone.
Talking about the wannabe idol shows, and Ellie said that Simon has matured a lot. I don't want him to mature. I like him to mature.
Yeah, I kind of preferred him when he was kind of a mean.
I don't know if he matured or just realized that he can't do that anymore.
Yeah, all right, so here it is. It says, what you call reality is your brain's best guess, composed of prior experiences and expectations, further clouding your already limited perception. That quote really spoke to me a long time ago, right? Because that's really all reality is what our expectations are based upon everything we've already been through, right? And so...
put something up.
So what?
Simon put something up.
I'm not even going to pretend to pronounce that word, man. Schopenhauer? Oh, Schopenhauer. Okay, yeah, it's a person. Yeah, so anyways, so I think right now there's so many people that are at war with reality. And I think part of that is because we've been told for so long that we're all good enough and we're all great enough, we can be whatever we want to be, that we've kind of believed that lie, right? Because it is a lie. We all can't be whatever we want to be. And for those of you who are very sensitive, today might not be the show for you. We're just this is some reality, man. And reality is not everybody's meant to be everything, right? I can't go be a ballerina tomorrow. It's just not going to happen. Oh. You don't see dudes my size, whatever, going to be a ballerina. And that's okay. Like, we got to stop thinking that reality is a negative thing, right? Like, reality in and of itself is unbiased. It just is. Go ahead.
Are we going to have to label this show spoiler alert?
Yeah, right? Yeah. Spoiler alert, you're not that great at it. Because how many times you and I did the pay program, right? And they all thought that they were the Michael Jordan of smoking weed. They all thought that, like, oh, I know, I got a brother who smoked weed, he graduated. Yeah, but you're here with me. So what that means is you're just not as good at smoking weed, apparently. You know, like,
you didn't get out of adolescence and you're already got
exactly.
You know, suck at.
Yeah,
you're sloppy.
Like, I have a son who plays Fortnite constantly. He's pretty decent at it, I guess, as far as Fortnite goes. I got an 11-year-old daughter. She sucks at it. She tries to play. She gets upset. She gets angry. She sucks at it. It's just not her thing, so she chooses not to play it. You know? Crafts. My wife is probably the greatest craft person I've ever met in my entire life. She's never seen anything that she couldn't figure out. You've had them. How many times has she sent me to you with, like, Christmas gifts and stuff, whatever, that's this whole hand... I'm like, I don't even pretend like it's from me. I'm like, here you go. Like, I couldn't do that.
I'm pretty sure she's an elf.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
And that's okay. I suck at it. Like, I'm just never going to be that guy. You know, and it has nothing, there's no bearing on who I am as a person, what my value is. That's just not a skill set that I have. And I think that there's not enough of that these days, right? Like, I think we spend so much time telling people to dream and telling people to, you know, chase your dreams. There's nothing wrong with chasing your dreams, but at the same token, your dreams should kind of be well within what your abilities are. And
let me play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
So what's wrong with that? What's wrong with telling your kids that you're
it's
the
delusional.
Greatest, you know, like, okay. But what is the harm in that?
The harm in that is then you no longer start to question yourself. You no longer hold yourself accountable and improve and build. Because why do you need to improve if you're already that great? And then the problem is you might not be that great, you know, and in terms of a career path, that's one thing. But in terms of our own behavior and how we view ourselves and how we interact with those around us, if we don't ever get told that maybe our perspective or our approach is wrong or could be different, or I usually use the word skillful because it just turns people off a little bit less. If we could be more skillful in a situation, then that makes us go improve. But if we don't ever get told that, then it's always their problem. It's always their fault. It's always, you know, somebody else's problem and why my life is doing what it is. And I don't improve. I don't grow. I'm not an asset to the people around me because I'm constantly expecting all of them to get to the box that I think that they should fit in because I've never really been checked on it. And that's the harm. You know, that's the true harm. I had so many people tell me in my life that I shouldn't have been so angry or so whatever back in the day. And I argued with them all the time, but they were right. You know, the truth is they were right. I needed to hear those things. And if I didn't have people hearing that or telling me that, if I didn't have people in my life that would hold me accountable to those things, I might have never been open to the idea, hey, something needs to change.
Well, one of the problems in this whole scenario is that there's a lot of individuals that don't have the right people around them. And I'm going to flip it just a little bit, Trinity, which is why I asked the question, because there's a lot of people that have haters around them, or they have parents that aren't very supportive, or friends that are jealous, or people around them that are jealous of their successes or their potential, or just negative because of their own failures. So they tell somebody, you're never going to be, you can't. And we have story after story after story of individuals who persevered regardless of the negative way, or regardless of they were told they couldn't do it, but then they could do it. They absolutely could do it. So there is a line there, right? There's a line between being delusional and hey, you need to change direction. The reality that you think isn't. And then the other side being, no, you just don't have the right conditions around you. You just need to work harder, and that actually can be your reality, but it's just going to take a little bit more effort.
Sure.
Or a lot more effort.
I think every entrepreneur in the world has come across that.
Right.
I think, and for me, I was having this conversation earlier, right? Even about the American Idol thing, about singing. And because we get into this debate sometimes of everybody's got their truth, so nothing's real anymore, kind of a thing. And that's what I kind of interjected. I was like, well, no, there's a difference between fact and truth, right? Truth is my perception of the facts and how it relates to me and how I relate to them. Whereas fact is something that we kind of all agree on. It's for us right now in Florida, it's daylight. We kind of agree on that. It's not my truth, but Ellie, it's 4 p.m. I don't know what time the sun goes down over there, but let's assume for the sake of the conversation, somebody's watching this and it's nighttime where they're at. Well, for their truth is it's nighttime. The fact is, if you're in this time zone, it's daytime. The fact is, if they're in their time zone, it's nighttime. That's a fact. And so there are certain measurements, right, that are barometers for certain things. So, for instance, the singing one. We as a society have decided what we like and what we don't like using barometers such as pitch, off key, on key, those types of things. And so if somebody were to be singing and they're way off pitch or they're off key and they don't fit within these barometers or these measurements, then it's safe to say that you're not really that good at it. And if you go and you try to learn how to do it, and you go to a coach and you learn how to do it, and you get better, then maybe you can get better. But at the moment, you're not good at it. That doesn't mean you'll never be good at it. I don't know. It's not for me to judge. I'm not a vocal coach. I don't know anything about that. But the point is, we do have barometers out there. So if you look at these objective barometers that aren't personal, they're just kind of like, this is what we want. I'm trying to think of like sports, right? So if I was about to say the word, you're going to like it. I'm going to say it anyways. If there's a midget. If you're a midget, you're most likely not going to be an offensive lineman, right? Like, you can't teach height. You can't learn height. If you're coming at me like 4'3", I'm probably not going to put you anywhere on my football team, if I'm honest with you. Why? Because I have barometers in place. And this whole idea of it's not the size of the dog in the fight, that's bullshit, because they've never come across a 6'8", 380-pound dog then, apparently, right? And so we have a barometer in place that at 4'2", 120 pounds, you're not going to make a good offensive lineman. It's just not going to happen. But that's so. Is there a gray area? I agree 100%. 100% there's a gray area. A lot of that has to do with perception and kind of our emotional things and what we can and can't accomplish. But I think that we can weed a lot of that out by using the barometers that are in place, right? And I think that's part of it, man. I think that weeds it out to the point that there's less of it. And I think we all need to do that because, as I said earlier, it kind of makes the world a little bit better of a place. As you're always telling people, stay in your lane, right? Well, if you can figure out what your lane is and you can stay in it, it makes the world a better place because you're not encroaching on somebody else's lane and trying to do something else. You're not doing whatever lane you're in poorly because it's just not your skill set. And if you stay in your lane, not only are you doing what you're meant to be doing, but you're also happier at that point, which means you're putting off less negative reverberations in the world because you're happy doing what you're doing. You're in your lane, you're successful, and everybody knows it, and you're doing your thing. The key is finding that lane, and no, it's not easy. A lot of people who are much older than I am still don't know their lane, and I get that. But I think part of that problem is in today's world we're starting to chastise the truth tellers, right? And I don't mean the truth tellers who say I'm just keeping it real, who are just being an asshole. I don't mean those people. But I mean the legitimate truth tellers. Like we're not allowed to just, hey, you're not that good at that. We're not allowed to say those things. It's like so taboo and so negative right now to tell somebody, hey, maybe you're not that good at that. Maybe you should find something else. And I think that that's a bad thing. I don't think we should, because if you truly are good at that, then, you know, you can overcome it. I've had people tell me my whole, like, I remember there was things that I was trying to get done in the business world, like doing internet or doing whatever, and say, hey, that's not possible. And I would say to them, well, it's not possible for you, but I think I can do it. But I wasn't basing that off of purely ego. I was basing that off of, in my life, the things that I've set out to do. It's not totally outside the norm to think that I could accomplish these particular tasks. Like, I think I was a pretty good judge of my skill set, what I could or couldn't do, and it wasn't based upon how I feel. I was based upon, over all the years that I've been in my life, these are the things I've been able to accomplish, and this kind of fits within that. It's, you know, the same basic skill set is needed, and so I was able to get those things done. But because I knew I had a particular skill set that this other individual might not have had, I don't know. Maybe they did have, they didn't develop it. Who knows? And you're similar in that way as well, because I know there's been plenty of meetings you and I both been in, and well, the Hope-a-thon. You know, we talked about that, and I didn't think the Hope-a-thon was going to work. You were basically like, screw you, I think I can get it done, and we did it, and it turned out to be awesome. But at the end of the day, the Hope-a-thon wasn't you telling me that you're going to go try out for the NBA. You know what I mean? You were doing something that very much fit within your skill set. Entertaining, pontificating about a topic that you know very well, bringing in people that you know, and so it all fit within your skill set. Was it a big undertaking? Yes, but it wasn't outside of your already skill set. So is it a shock that you got it done? No, not really. I mean, I got behind you, obviously, but that's an example I think of. We use the barometers in place to decide what is or isn't possible, basically. I've been talking a long time, so go for it.
No, yeah. While you were talking, what I've been thinking about with the stuff that you're saying is the educational system, and so taking what you're saying in that there's a reality. There's a reality of your certain skill set, right?
Yep.
So I'm going to go along with that. So, what is it that we need to do within our school system? You think, because that's where it all begins, right? That's where we're all captured. That's a place where all of us have to go. At least in this society, we all have to go. And they have us captured for a certain amount of years. What is it that they have to do to kind of start encouraging us to go along a certain skill set without predetermining for us, without becoming divergent, right? Like the movie Divergent, where they say because you're a physically strong person, you have to be a warrior. You know what I mean? Right. Because there's people that have that skill set. Like, for instance, you're a strong, physical, big guy. So if you would just simply go by initial impression alone, people would not think that you were an A student. They would not think that you were as intelligent as you were, as insightful as you are, as empathetic as you are. So you would get categorized very early. You would be put in a certain path very early, and it might stunt some of the process in which you would never become the Dharma Guy. Right? You would instead have been a football player because that's what you were intended to be, or a wrestler. You know, you'd be on WWE. So the point is, though, is that how often do we see somebody of your size, or like my future son-in-law, 6'4", and when I see him and he likes sports, but we do it, but he wasn't put in that direction at all. His parents, you know, had him play musical instruments, they had him do other things, and so he doesn't have some of the skills. And I think, man, if that was my son, I would have had him. He would have been dribbling a ball very young. He would have been throwing, you know, he would have been doing sport athletic things because I would have judged him very young to say, wow, he's an athletic specimen. Right. So if I feed that, what might that become? So going back to my question, because it probably got lost in that little rambling, is how do we support a natural skill set without handicapping a desired skill set?
Yeah, I don't know if I have the right answer. I mean, I have thoughts, obviously. You know, my initial thoughts were exposure. Exposing him to different things. You know, some things are going to fit, some things aren't. Some things are going to like, some things are not. You know, I was fortunate to have a mom that exposed me to multiple sports when I was younger, and I excelled at some of them. But I remember as a kid playing badminton. You know what I mean? Like, that wasn't like a normal sport. Like, I was in the hood, man. Like, there weren't other hood kids out there playing badminton. It just wasn't part of it. But she exposed it to me. She gave me the opportunity to experience it and see what I liked or didn't like. I tried tennis, baseball, football, like all these different things. And then, of course, I had the one thing I wasn't exposed a lot to was artistry at an early age. I wasn't really encouraged, but I never really was never instinctually driven to that either. You know what I mean? I have an eye for it, but I don't really physically. It's just not my skill set. So I would say exposure and encouragement. And then on the flip side of that, we do have some things in place, right? Like first thing pops in my head is the Myers-Briggs test, stuff like that, like aptitude things that kind of give you an idea of the things that you might be suited for. I would also question the timing in which that thing is introduced, right? Like I think that at 8, you might not be ready to be told what you have to be when you grow up. You know what I mean? Unless you're Tiger Woods, I guess.
But you and I can see it on some people. I mean,
sure.
Right? I mean,
sure.
We've been around long enough. There's a certain wisdom that comes along with age, right?
Yeah.
And so, I know I can go to like a little league game, and I can see just the physical structure of a certain kid and the way they run and the way they handle the scenario, and be like, that kid's got some natural skills and talents, right?
Yeah.
So here's the thing with physicality, it's pretty obvious. But we are now in a society where the reality of your physicalness doesn't matter, doesn't count. We like to debate the inner stuff, the stuff that is debatable, right? Yeah. But the physical stuff, we ignore. For instance, there's a football intelligence, correct?
Yeah.
Like we say, that player is very intelligent.
Yeah.
That level of intelligence is not supported in natural society, in normal society. That is not even viewed as intelligence, because there's a lot of individuals out there that view intelligence, or like if you're culture, or if sciences, or mathematics, or art, or they would consider a different rounded, not more well-rounded, because there's a lot of roundedness to these other individuals. However, the way we've even identified what a well-rounded person is skewed towards certain things that physicality has nothing to do with.
Yeah.
So I think that if we're going to talk about judging others, we need to first accept that some people just have a better skill set than you, and are more geared towards things just from physical nature. Physicality is true. Like you said, you're short or you're tall. Those things are simple, right? Yeah. But now we can't say larger or smaller. There's people with some serious self-esteem issues based around some of that stuff. And there's serious self-esteem issues with short and tall, actually. I mean, how many times have we said Napoleon complex about people? You know what I mean? So all these things do exist, and I think that we just need to get to a point where if you're an individual and you just don't have a certain skill set, it's important for you to get around I guess the right individuals that maybe are professionals in the industry you want to go to, and just ask them and question them and be mentored by them. They will let you know very early on whether this is for you or not, because they're in it,
Yep.
I mean, that's what I think. I don't think we have enough mentorship going into the school system.
I don't think so either.
And kind of pulling them out of there, like in athletics. In athletics, you have scouts. You know what I mean? We need scouts for other industries to go into the schools early on and start mentoring some of these younger people.
Well, it reminds me, not to go too far off on a football tangent, but just to prove the point, right? When we say in football, a quarterback, you need to be a certain height, right? Because you need to be able to survey the field, look and see over these massive giants of human beings in front of you that you're trying to throw over. And so the taller you are, the more more apt you're able to do those things. Does that mean it's impossible for a quarterback 5 foot something to achieve success or make it to the NFL? Of course not. But they're very few and far between. They're the exception, not the rule. And that's the problem is we're in a society now where everybody thinks that they are the exception. Nobody wants to just be average, right? And then the problem is, by definition, you're average. If everybody was this, then that would be the average, right? And so, if my son was like 5'5" and he wanted to play football, would I encourage him to play football? Probably not. As far as a quarterback, right? Probably not. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, could you make it? Sure, absolutely. The moon can come crashing down to the earth right now. Is it likely to happen? No. So would it be likely that he would be a major success and enjoy it? No, it would be a hard uphill climb. Does that mean he's not allowed to do that? No, but I'm going to be real with him and say, dude, if you want to do this, go for it, but just understand the hill that you're climbing, that you're going to have to overcome everything, and even then, you might not get selected. Go ahead.
Okay, go. No. Continue.
I would say even if you get to be the best that you're able to be, if you reach your maximum potential, it still might not be judged good enough to make it to this particular level, and you got to be okay with that. And if you're not, then maybe you shouldn't do it. But this idea of being because it made me think of I think it was a Geico commercial, right? Because they were trying to say it was an easy selection, and they had this little kid. There was like little kids all playing basketball. And they were trying to pick their team, and on the other side was Charles Barkley and a bunch of little kids. And the little kid was like, I'm going to take Charles Barkley. He picked him on his team. And I go, oh, what an easy decision, right? And in today's world, the first thing I thought of is there's probably short people out there being offended. Like, why couldn't I get, I'm sorry, but picking Barkley over little kids, and that's the thing is I think that we've gotten to the point now where we're so offended, we're so sensitive, we're so rooting for the underdogs, we're so thinking that everybody's an outlier that we don't see the truth in the fact sometimes. And that's what causes us more suffering than need be in our lives because, as you pointed out, you got to accept your limitations, right? Like, we teach accepting this idea of dreaming for bigger and more and chasing things, but we also have to teach accepting your limitations as well, because that comes along with it. You can't have all these greatnesses and have zero limitations.
Not just a tall kid. I mean, in sports, any young guy that's ever gone out to a park and you don't know everybody and you're getting selected for a basketball team or you're doing something like that. Not only the tallest kid gets judged and pre-selected, the black kid does too. He gets judged as better and put in front of the line as well. So that short little white kid is always the one that when they do real well, everybody's like, "Whoa, dude, man!" And it's like
that was me.
That kid did so good because that little white kid that did really good. You're always like, "Dude, that's a badass." Right there.
That was me. I would always show up to the court and they would always say, "Oh, it was a white boy." But then by the end of the game, like, "Oh man, the white boy can play," and I ended up getting picked first because of my size and I knew how to use it. But yeah, I was judged when I got there. I was white. I couldn't do it. White men can't jump, right? That was the name of the movie.
It's a whole movie based on that. I mean, I'm that's not going to get canceled because it's white man can't jump. It's not black man jump higher. If it was called black man jumps higher, then it'd probably get canceled. But let me go back to wasted energy because I think some of the reality that you were talking about, like when you face some of the realities of your limitations or the realities of what you can do and what you can't do, what your skill sets are, what you can't do. I think that it prevents you from wasting energy too far in a certain direction, or inspires you to commit more to getting better. And so there is, I think there is a positive here, telling someone the truth. But the way you tell the truth is different. Like, you don't look at them and say, dude, you suck, give it up. That is very 1980 and before, right? But to look at somebody that says, listen, all right, so here's the reality. The reality is that right now, the way you're performing, that's not going to cut. That's not going to cut it. That's not going to get you where you want to go. So you got two options. One, you can quit now, change directions right now, pivot. Or two, you're going to have to increase your level of commitment to this goal that you have. And if you increase the level of commitment to this goal you have, let's reassess it, at some point in the future, 365 days from now, and let's see how much progress you did. But in order to get to the place you want to be, this is the kind of progress you're going to have to make month to month or year to year in order to get there, because everything is a short time period, because life happens. And in all of our lives, regardless of what we wanted to do, the life happens part, meaning you fall in love with somebody, you get married, you get stable and settled in a certain area, you start building up bills, all those things that settle you, your health, age. There's things that just happen that start limiting the amount of doors that will open, or the amount of doors you can even accept as being open. Even if it's wide open, you got to say, you know what, I can't. Like you, for instance, how many times have I said, hey, Trinity, you got to move out here to the beach. You got to move over here to New Smyrna Beach. And even though the door's wide open for you to move to the beach, you can do it. You can sell your house. You can move here. What do you always say? My kids live here. I share custody with my children, and I'm never going to be far away from my kids while they're young, like that. I can't remove them from the school. So your parent door is the issue. All the other doors wide open. You can sell the house. You can move. You like the beach. You like Florida. I mean, you like it. In other words, your family would like it. They wouldn't not like it. But the point is that there's another situation, a reality that exists that prevents you from doing it. And so we need to take those examples, and we need to help younger people real early on, saying you either need to add some commitment or pivot. And I think that's an important tool that we do not currently have in teachers. They're not even allowed to talk like that.
No.
People would never be able to say that to you right now. And a matter of fact, nobody in our current society, the way we're moving, the direction that we're moving, nobody is going to be allowed to say that to somebody without being ridiculed or shamed for even being that real to an individual.
Well, and the other I guess aspect to this, right? And Simon, I see you're writing a lot of comments, man. I want to address them, but I don't want to lose my train of thought either. The other thing I don't think is so we talked about the physicality part of it, right? And just overall skill sets. But I think there's another element, and we touched on it briefly, and I'd like to spend a little bit of time on that one now, and that is like the emotional component of it, right? Our behavior, our personality, our man. Like I watch Married at First Sight, right? And that's where they pair up people they married at first sight. Some of the pairings you see, and you immediately see that that's just not going to work, right? Because there's a certain type of personality versus another one, and it's just not going to happen, right? And so, like if you're a quirky personality, then there's a very small like group that's interested in that particular kind of personality, right? And so, what I mean by that is we all another skill set that we have or don't have is our emotional and our coping skill sets, how we address other people, how we handle criticism, how we cope with certain things. And I think the big component that there's not enough of these days that will aid in that, and that's accountability. When I talked about it earlier on a prior show. My daughter had a situation at school with her teacher, and she was telling me basically she made it out to seem like this teacher was a complete prick and just being an ass. And so I said, look, I'm gonna go to bat for you. I'm gonna call him up, but make sure that you're telling me everything here. And she says, yeah, it's fine. So when I called, I found out there was a whole other side of the story that she wasn't telling me, and I did not defend her because she was wrong. And I came back to her and I said, dude, you put me out there to dry, and I can't defend you for this one. I didn't take the approach of most people where my child is infallible and they're right 100% no matter what. No, I looked at it. These are the expectations. These are the rules. This is what you're supposed to live up to. You didn't do it. And so I told her, I was like, I'll go to bat for you, but in this case, you're wrong. I held her accountable and says, look, you're responsible for your actions, and they didn't line up to what they were supposed to. And I think that there needs to be more of that. There's not enough, because we've gotten to a point now where, like you said, this pendulum has swung so far to where we don't want to use things like fail, for instance, right? I just think that you watch Alone, right? Yeah. And so I don't even remember in what context. I just remember saying to her one time we were watching Alone, there was somebody on there, God, I don't remember who it was, that was getting so much attention. And they let them back. And I was like, but why? They failed. Like, I don't understand why they're getting so much attention, because they failed. And they were a very likable person. They were nice, but they failed. And my wife, the hair stood up instantly. She was like, fail? They didn't, and she defended this person, right? And I was like, hold up. I understand what you're saying. You like them. But what was the goal of the show? The goal of the show is to be alone, be the last person standing out of everything. So if you did not make it to the end as the last person standing, if that was the goal and you did not reach it, what is that called? That's called a failure. But that word just upset her so much because she thought that word failure meant bad person, you're not good enough. No, you just didn't achieve the objective that you set out to achieve, and that's okay. What's not okay is to not call it what it is. You failed to reach your goal. Go get better or go do what you got to do and come back. But that doesn't have anything to do with your value.
Right.
And I think that what we view as harshness are actually very important teaching tools for all of us. Right? We have to understand, if A, then B, right? Like I had my own son, 20, right now he's getting ready to be 21. I remember having a conversation with him in the house one time. He was like 17, I think it was, 17 or 18, I think. And he was talking about how something in the house wasn't fair. And I told him, I was like, I'm sorry, who lied to you and told you that this was a fair house? Like, this isn't a democracy. You don't make rules here. This is a this is a monarchy. I am the king. You do as I tell you. If you don't like it, go, right? Like, I don't care how you feel, right? Like, yes, and this is where the harshness comes. Yes, I care how you feel as a person. When it comes to decision, and that's what I mean though, is we're so stuck on on these emotional well-being things. We can't just listen to what's being said anymore. And so I was trying to explain to him is I don't care about your input when it comes to decision making. I'm making decisions based upon how I value things and how I want this house to go forward. Your input is trivial to me. It does. You don't pay the bills. You don't decide it, and you're not responsible for anything. So therefore, it doesn't matter to me. And that upset him so much. You would have thought that I slapped him or something. And I was like, dude, welcome to life. But that was like one of the first times in his life that he's had to approach that very real thing. And since then, since he's been out on his own, he's come back to me. He's like, yeah, I get it. Nobody cares. I was like, exactly. Nobody cares about your struggles. What they care about is results. You know, if I don't pay my mortgage tonight or whatever days due, if I don't pay my mortgage company doesn't care about this, this, and this. All they care about is, did you pay it? No? Late. Sorry. You know, they don't care. Yes, are there ways of getting hardships and things of that nature? Sure. Once again, those are the outliers. The main part is they don't care. Late fee, they're going to still want their money. And I think that we don't spend enough time realizing in life that results do matter. That's how you and I always say, how's that working out for you? Right? Yeah. So if you're in a relationship and you've been through your 7th relationship and they all kind of say the same thing, maybe it's not them. You know what I mean? Maybe it's you. Maybe you need to get better in this particular area. That's not a bad thing. That doesn't mean you don't have value. That doesn't mean you're not lovable. That doesn't mean you're doomed to be single for the rest of your life. That just means that maybe you need to look into that area that's pushing people away and grow in that area. And that's a good thing. But to say that you don't need to and it's fine and it's everybody else, maybe that's why you're in the 8th relationship that hasn't worked. You know? And we don't do enough of that. And I think at the heart of that is accountability. We don't hold people accountable. We make excuses and justifications. What is it? We're everybody else's judge, but we're our own lawyer kind of a thing. You know, we spend so much time on the whys. We don't really pay attention to the what. You know what I mean? Like if somebody didn't accomplish whatever it might be, we spend so much time justifying what it was in the context of it, but we kind of lose sight of you didn't get it done. And I think that that's kind of important.
Well, I think that's why it's important to understand that you can adjust your goal. I mean, game plans change all the time. Look, sticking with sports analogies. I mean, and by the way, the reason we use sports analogies is because there's a lot of education in sports.
Yeah,
a lot. You know, yeah. I feel for anyone that never played sport because you missed out on a lot of
especially team sports.
Stuff. Coaches are great at giving you education in a lot of different ways, and team sports more than individual sport. But well, I shouldn't say more because then
you just pissed off half of people.
Yeah. Anyway, so but you have to change that game plan. For instance, like we just had a Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
So we saw Mahomes. We expected Mahomes to score. Mahomes to be the scorer, right? The quarterback to be the scorer. But at some point during that game, somebody has to say, you know what? That's not the way we're going to score. We have to score another way. And they just could not adjust to that. They could not change the game plan to accomplish that. But that's life, right? Life is, no matter how great you are, because we all know Mahomes is great. He's great. Can he win? Absolutely. Is he a champion? Absolutely. Is he phenomenal? Absolutely. Yet he could not win. Yet he failed. He failed. Why? Because as a team, they could not adjust the situation. So you failing in something in your life doesn't mean you are not great or capable or able. It just means that you just did not have the right team around you at the time, or you just didn't adjust the game plan early enough or well enough to accomplish that particular goal. That doesn't mean you're a total failure. See, the word total is the bad word.
Yeah.
Total failure. Are you a failure? Yes, we all are. We all are victorious and we all are failures. But you're not a total failure, meaning you now adjust the goal. What were you successful at? Now, you could sit there in your pity party and say, well, I was successful at failing. I was successful at losing. Okay. That's because you're in a little pity party. Wipe off your tears. Give yourself the self-hug, because the self-hug is a lot better than any hug that anybody else is going to give you out there. And then adjust the goals and figure out, what did you succeed at? What did you succeed at? And for instance, in psychology, in therapy, in my sessions, when we talk to somebody, we don't talk about what you're not supposed to do, like don't do this, don't do that. That's not the way counselors talk. You talk about the affirmative, what you can do, what you will do, what you are capable of doing. You focus on the positive action that can be done, not the what not to be done. So if you're out there, you're trying to quit something, you don't say, I'm going to quit using drugs, I'm going to quit smoking, I'm not going to use today. You say, I'm going to drink water when this happens, or I'm going to eat food when this happens, or I'm going to call a sponsor when this happens. You talk in the positive of what you are going to do. I'm going to take a walk when I'm angered. I'm going to breathe 10 breaths before responding or reacting. I'm going to let someone read my emails before sending. Whatever it is. you're going to create a rule amongst yourself of what you are going to do, what you're not going to do. That's a lot more positive, that's a lot more reflective, and that's a lot more solution oriented rather than problem oriented. And so that's definitely what I wanted to bring up is you're allowed to change the game plan. Like what you wanted at 5 years, none of us are what we wanted to be at 5 years. And by the way, sticking with sports, all those professionals that you see played other things while they were growing up.
Yeah.
All of them except the quarterback played other positions. At the end of the day, you have like 15 quarterbacks on that field, but then it came down to, well, that's the real quarterback. But back in their school, they were the quarterback. They were, that was the receiver. So you see a lot of that change based on what? What do you see it on, Trinity? Size, like the body didn't grow the way it was going to grow, or it grew too much. Yeah. You grew so big that they said, you're not a quarterback, brother. You're a lineman. Or you're not a quarterback, brother. You're a wide receiver. Or you're not a quarterback, brother. Look at your body, the way it grew. You're a running back, or you're a linebacker. So those things happen in life. You adjust accordingly. But unfortunately, we don't all have coaches in our life where they will tell you the way they have to tell you when they have to tell you. Now, we haven't seen a lot of problems with coaches adjusting yet, but that is the next phase of big shocks that are going to happen to us, because coaches are no longer allowed to speak to the kids that like they were able to speak. So it's going to be interesting to see how they change and develop and still get their messages across. But praise all coaches, man. Even the sucky ones, even the horrible teachers and the bad coaches taught you something if you just sit back and look at the game plan and adjust accordingly.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. And so I think that was the overall arch of today was the reality, man. Is reality is your friend. It might not always agree with you. It might not always fit your expectations, but understanding reality is your friend in the sense of that's what helps you make your next decision, your next move. Meaning, if the reality of the situation is what you're doing is working, then that's a sign to you that, I need to keep going. If the reality of the situation is not working, then that should be a sign to you of, I need to adjust. I need to figure out a different way to get to my goal or a different goal altogether. Who knows?
Not everything is as clear as an X-ray.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All the realities that are going to be presented to you about what your limitations are not as clear as an X-ray. And by the way, Trinity, you ever get an X-ray that you could of a fracture? Have you ever seen one of your X-rays of like a hairline?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a hairline fracture. Without an expert telling you what the hell you were looking at, it looked broken to you.
No, not even.
It didn't look broken to you.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't see the problem. Now, it's easy to look at an X-ray that like the bone is here and here.
Yeah.
But when you see an intact bone and all you saw is a little white line, and they tell you, there it is, and you're like, what? Is? That's a hairline fracture. See, that is what we're talking about. It's those realities. Man, what is your X-ray to your personality? What is the X-ray to your emotional health? What is the X-ray to your intelligence level? You have to find the different types of measuring tools that Trinity was talking about earlier. What is the measuring tool for that specific thing? Because it's not a broad stroke. Each specific talent that you have or each specific thing about a human has an X-ray, but you got to find it. It's not going to be as obvious as a break all the time.
Yeah, and for me, sticking with the spiritual component of it, is it starts here, right? It starts with us. It starts inside. We have to look and say, okay, what is it that I'm contributing to this situation? What led me to this? So that's where it starts, right? It's just even something as simple as, have you ever watched these, like these nanny shows, right? Like Super Nanny or whatever it is. Before I had kids, I was watching those shows sometimes just because I thought it was interesting. And the thing that I always thought was the most interesting to me is the first thing the nanny always did when she went to the house was correct the parents.
Watch. No, first thing she did was watch.
Well, yeah.
But the first day they would just monitor.
Yeah, but then her adjustments were never, the kids needed, no. The adjustments were always, the kids are just following your lead, right? It starts with, and all the parents kept thinking, my kid's unruly. I don't know why I can't do it. Well, it's you, right? But that was a reality check, right? That's what she did. She gave them a reality check. It's like, look, what you're doing is not working. Right, they're not going to just magically pick it up. They're following your lead, and you're setting the tone by doing these things.
Yeah.
If you correct these deficiencies, you'll have better behaved children. It's not the children; it's you. It's the way you're approaching, right? And so, to me, that's a perfect example of the reality check that we all kind of need in our lives, man. Is we have this idea of like, this isn't working, and as you said, somebody needs to come along with the X-ray. I'm like, no, man, it's right here. This is what it is. And I think that's the benefit of reality. Because all those parents, when that super nanny leaves, are given this blueprint and it's working and showing. Is it perfect? No, of course not. But that's why you got to readjust as you go. But if you keep saying to yourself, okay, what is it that I'm doing? Like, even with like dogs, right? There's certain behaviors that I see my dogs have that I know that most other dogs don't have because it's unique to me in this household, right? There's certain things that we do. Like my dog knows every night at a certain time when like a light flip, or here, better yet, food. They know I feed them the same time pretty much every single night, right? I can get up and walk around. And they'll sometimes get up and follow me here and there. You know, they're kind of Velcro dogs. But their behavior and their energy level when they get up is vastly different at a certain time every night. I can get up and down 1,000 times. And they'll mosey around, they'll follow me. But right around like 9:45-ish, if I get up, they'll jump up because they know what's coming. They know that, all right, this is it. It's food time. Get ready. And how do they know that? Because they've seen the routine. They've established it, right? And so if I were to think, wow, my dogs are just smart. No, it's just they've seen the pattern. I've set that through my own behavior. They've realized certain mannerisms that I might not even be aware of that they cues to them that say, hey, it's food time. And that's what our lives are, right? So our behavior, the things that we're doing, you know, the stuff that we're getting from it, that's us. And so if we don't like it, we got to change our reality. But you can't change your reality if you don't want to focus on your reality. If you want to just pretend that it's not there. If you want to keep listening to your ego telling you what it is, then you're going to always just be stuck in that same cycle. If you don't listen to your ego and look at the reality of it, of how other people are perceiving, how you're coming off, and is it working, is it not, all these different barometers, then you'll walk away with a different perspective. Say, okay, well, I can either say, cool, I'm going to keep it as it is, I like it, or, you know what, all right, maybe I need to adjust it. Like in my own house. And sometimes I can come off rough. I can come off very cold. And out in the world, I don't really care too much about that. But in my own home, I don't want my wife or my children to have that view of me. And so I could have either said, hey, tough shit, get over it. Or I could say, all right, well, I don't want you to feel that way. And if what I'm doing is being interpreted by you in that way, then I'm going to make some adjustments so you no longer interpret that because I don't want you to feel that. You know, and I get much further that way, and I become a more well-rounded person that way, as opposed to just sit back and say, well, y'all just need to get over it. Right. And that's what I mean by reality of the situation.
Yo, I got a great example for that as far as personally, because...
I think I know what the story is.
Well, no, I'm not going to tell a story. I didn't think of a story. I just thought about a scenario. In other words, my natural tendency, and when I say natural, it's like it must have been embedded from 0 to 5 because it's just naturally there, right? My comfort zone or my go-to is being aggressive, abrasive, and sarcastic, right? True. But if I just say, all right, that's what I'm going to be, and everybody else has to adjust to that, then I would never be able to be the empathetic, loving person I am for so many people when I put myself as their helper, when I put myself in a servant role, and that's the role that I've chosen on earth. I've chosen to be a servant to people and a servant for a greater good rather than a servant for myself because I didn't like where that was leading. Even though my natural tendency, again, aggressive, abrasive, and sarcastic. There's a lot of you out there that have some of those tendencies, but you want to do that everywhere. Like you want to talk the same way to a nun that you would talk to your best friend. You know, you want to talk, you want to be the same everywhere and have the whole world adjust and be okay with you. And I think that's the wrong message that we're teaching even young kids is that you can't just be a certain way and then have every aspect of society be okay with that. You have to play where, you know, the game in which you're in, right? If you're playing charades, you play charades. If you play poker, you play poker. If you play blackjack, you play blackjack. If you play football, you play football. But what we're teaching kids now is that you play the exact same way everywhere. The same skill set is for everywhere and for everything, and the world should let you win because you want to win, and you're a good person, and you should win. And you know what? That's what it's all about. No, that's not what it's all about. What it's about is just understanding what your shortcomings are and being like, okay, well, I need to beef up my level of empathy. I need to beef up my listening skills, and I need to tone down the way I come across. So by me doing that and building those skill sets, I'm able to use those when I need to. And then when my guard's off, then I can be aggressive, abrasive, and sarcastic. But when I'm in a situation where it's needed to be empathetic and loving and serving, then that's what I can be. And I think that's what we need to further develop. That you all have your own personal well-roundedness that's not defined by other people. But it's going to start with the exact opposite of what you're really comfortable with. Practicing what you're not really comfortable with. So now you have a left to right, right? And then somewhere in the middle is going to be the point where you sit comfortably. And I think that's kind of where you and I, Trinity, we're often right there in the middle of even our own skill set.
Yeah.
Because if we play too far to the left or right of our own skill set, that could be very dangerous for us and not really helpful to our families and to the people we're trying to help.
No, I agree 100%. So I'll do one more anecdotal story, and then we'll do our wrap-ups. So just this morning, right, because this discussion actually made me think of another situation that happened this morning.
Okay.
So my daughter, 16, finally got her driver's license. Yay. She got a driver's license, and so she's been, driving all over the place. And her goal is to be able to drive her car to school. But in order to do that, as you probably are aware, there's a list of requirements that first need to be met. You have to sign this paper, you got to pay a fee, you got to show proof of registration, show all these fun things, right? And so she's been wanting to do this for a while now. And so her plan was this morning to go and get it all taken care of. However, my daughter also has a very bad habit of being irresponsible and forgetful. And she's been led to believe that it's the rest of our job to accommodate that, as opposed to her learning how to be more responsible, learning how to be pragmatic in her approach, saying, hey, just so I don't, I'll do certain things, and I'll set reminders on my phone to remind me to do things because I know it's important to me. I don't want to forget. I've learned to do that because I've learned that if I don't, nobody else is going to do it for me. Right? So with her, same thing. So I woke up to a text message of her asking me to bring her little wallet that has the ID in it and her card so she can get her thing. And just so happens that today we're doing our show, and then I have to go pick up the little ones at a different time, so it just wasn't going to really work out. So I text her, I said, look, I'll try, but I can't make any promises because I got the show, whatever. And then I asked her, I said, well, where is it, just in case? She was like, oh, it should be either here or here. So I looked both those places, it wasn't there. And then she started giving me this other list of things and places to go look, right? And we're in a group text between her and her mom. And I know mom's answer. Mom's answer, she'll do whatever she's got to do to make it, because she knows how important it is for her and everything else. But thankfully, mom's at work. So it came onto my shoulders. So my response was, I love you, kid, but I'm not going to go digging through your room looking for stuff for a non-emergency. And the reality of the situation, and this is what I mean by reality, right? So my wife would come from the feel-good approach of, oh, it's important for her, it was an honest mistake, she forgot, whatever. She makes all these excuses, but I look at it more from the reality part and the reality is, you failed. You didn't plan properly. It wasn't important enough for you to make sure that you brought that with you. And so I'm not going to enable that behavior by coming to the rescue. No, I want you to sit at school today suffering, knowing that you missed a day, so maybe now you'll start to kind of pay more attention to these things. Because the reality of the situation is you screwed up. And it's not bad. It doesn't mean she's a bad person. No, you just screwed up. You didn't make an effort to make sure you reminded yourself. It wasn't important for you. And then when those things happen, you can't expect the world to accommodate your forgetfulness or your lack of responsibility. Because at the end of the day, that's what that was. And so my wife, on the other hand, I guarantee you, because she's who she is, she's a wonderful human being, she's emotional, much like your wife, she would instantly go into, oh yeah, but and she's right. Yeah, she's a great kid, she deserves it, but it doesn't change the reality. And the reality is, you didn't plan, and now you have a consequence for it. And that's what we're talking about. Is you've got to look at the reality. All these other things very well may be true. All these emotional things are absolutely possible, and they're true, but this is also true. And the other thing that's also true is the reality of the situations. The reality is, you messed up. It wasn't our responsibility. It was yours. You didn't do the necessary steps to make sure you remembered it. And for some reason in today's world, that comes off harsh. But it's not harsh. It's just reality. And I think that's what we're talking about, is we have to collectively learn that the reality of the situation can be your friend. And that's okay. So, you got some last words, man?
No, not necessarily. I think that we kind of said it right. I mean, I'll go back to some things that were stated. That way we can remember. Look, if you're just, the more realistic you are with yourself, the more honest you are with yourself, you're not going to waste energy. You're going to be able to pivot when you need to. You're going to be able to seek the mentors that you need in your life to achieve the goals that you have. You got to be able to change the game plan. If things aren't working, you got to be able to change the game plan. Don't live your entire life trying to make a certain game work when it's just not working. The sooner you get around people that can help you pivot, you might use some of those skill sets that you do have. It might be close to the reality that you wanted. It just may not be exactly what you wanted. But you have to be real with yourself first. Don't try to be real with the world first. There's a lot of people out there that say, I'm just being real, and wants the whole world to accept them for their realness. You have to accept yourself for your own realness first, and then it'll work out a little bit better for you without as much frustration or anxiety. Go for it, Trini.
Right on. So first of all, thanks for everybody for tuning in and watching. I know it's a lot to ask for some of you guys to give us an hour of your time. So for those of you who do, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all those things. As always, you can follow us on social media. I'm at the Dharma Guy. He's at the Dope Doctor. You can find us at WPSN99 or at Now Matters More. If you're watching this on Facebook, by all means, you know where to find it. If you're listening to this via YouTube at youtube.com/Dharma Time, or if you're listening via a different podcasting platform and you want to be able to participate live and watch, it's facebook.com/WPSN99. So, yeah, my little wrap up. I actually got some tips for you guys today, and we'll leave it at that. The first tip I got is, number one, you have your own reality. Understand that as you approach life and as you're going through things, you have your own reality. And your reality isn't necessarily factual, but it's your truth. And that's based upon your life experiences, the things that you've been taught, the things you were exposed to, what your expectations are. That all kind of is unique to you, and that is your reality, right? The second thing, the second tip I would say is understanding that others also have their own reality based upon their experiences and their perspective and the things that they went through. And it could be contrary to yours. It doesn't mean that they're any less or wrong or whatever. It just means that they have a completely different personality that means as much to them as yours does to you. And the third and final one is, that's okay. It's okay for other people to have different realities, as long as it's based on some sort of factualness, right? I'm not talking about the outliers. I'm talking about generally here. It's okay for other people to have different realities. It's up to us to find It's up to us to find common ground and work together and figure out the compromise on how we can all move forward. But we can't do that if we can't accept our reality or other people's realities. And sometimes it's going to be different. So anyways, that's all I got. Be sure, for those of you who want to listen to some sports talk, we're going to exit this one and start a new broadcast on facebook.com/WPSN99. For everybody else that just tuned in for Dharma Time, thank you so much. And now that you know better, do better. Peace. Are you still here? What are you doing? I told you, go do better.